network that is designed to provide varying levels of academic and behavioral support based on student needs. How data, work samples, and formal assessments such as the Otis Lennon School Ability Test or OSAT can be used to identify students with exceptional potential. Protocol instruments such as GLOBE or Global Learning and Observation to Benefit the Environment, a US based science, math, and technology and social studies educational program that is ideal for gifted and high ability students. Madam President, preliminary data, for example, in September 2024, the Gates McGinnity Reading Test or GMRT score have been used to identify several exceptional students within our system, demonstrating advanced reading skills that exceed grade level standards. This data provides a strong foundation for developing both homogeneous and heterogeneous learning groups that will allow gifted learners to thrive. Madam President, to date, there has been much outreach to obtain community support to identify gifted learners, provide positive leadership experiences, and offsite educational opportunities for students that can help cultivate our gifted learners' intellectual curiosity and creativity. For example, Madam President, NASA's Cooper's Island station has agreed to host a cohort of 15 students for a specialized science learning experience. The Bermuda Institute of Ocean Sciences, or BIOS, has met with the ministry to design authentic STEM experiences for advanced learners. Also, partnerships are being explored with the I AM program to identify and develop young student leaders within the primary six cohort, and discussions with local reinsurance companies are ongoing to support the nurturing of gifted students. Finally, we are connecting with art professionals to determine how to meet the needs of our exceptional visual, music, and performing arts students. Additional institutions such as the Aquarium, BUEI, and other local educational environmental agencies are within easy reach to provide experiential learning that connects directly to our curriculum. Madam President, as we move forward to reignite gifted education, our focus will be on better identification of gifted students, designing multiple ways to best meet the needs of the identified gifted students based on data and location of school, conducting classroom observations, providing professional guidance on differentiating for advanced learners, and expanding data collection in mathematics and science. These efforts are just beginning and will be expanded over time to ensure that gifted learners remain challenged, inspired, and prepared for post secondary education or training and community life, thus, ultimately contribute to Bermuda's growth and innovation. There is a clear sense of synergy and optimism around this initiative, the expression of renewed energy and curiosity about identifying and supporting students who require more academic challenge and depth from educators, officers, and external partners reflects a shared vision that Bermuda's gifted and high ability students deserve the same level of intentional support as all other learners. Madam President, by reigniting the gifted education, we are creating exclusivity. We are not creating exclusivity. We are creating equity. We are ensuring that every student, regardless of ability, is supported to reach their highest potential. This initiative represents a crucial step towards an education system that truly recognizes and nurtures the diverse gifts of all Bermudian children. Thank you, Madam President.
And thank you, Minister Christopher C. the Minister of Education. The next statement is in the name of Senator Lindsay Simmons, Junior Minister of Home Affairs. Senator Simmons, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I rise today before honorable members of the House to table the Affordable Bermuda Agenda, which constitutes phase one of the minister's journey to address affordability in Bermuda and reflects the minister's mandate to lead cost of living actions on behalf of the government. Madam President, today marks another step forward in our shared work to ensure that every Bermudian can live, build, and thrive here at home. Members will recall that in February 2025, the ministry received a clear and focused mandate to address the cost of living on our island. This agenda is proof of our swift action to address lived experience where residents expressed the that cost of living are too high. The data gathered from more than 2,200 residents and 270 businesses in March and April indicated the immediate relief was expected, but in order for it to be applied successfully, it must be practical and fair. Madam President, beyond collecting data, we engaged with industry, held focus groups, and tested ideas to ensure policy related real experiences and outcomes. In June, over 250 participants attended the Cost of Living Summit, resulting in actionable tasks and stronger connections between the public and policy implementation. Funding for this effort was $57,009.64. Madam President, since the summit, the ministry has analyzed, refined, and tested more than 300 proposals and distilled them into a clear, actionable plan. Phase one is tabled today, while additional proposals continue to be assessed for viability ahead of publication. Affordability is a shared responsibility. Government must modernize the legislature fairly. The private sector must evolve in steps with the needs of customers, and the public must be empowered through the information, education, and participation. This will result in meaningful, impactful, and sustainable outcomes. Madam President, the agenda is anchored by five guiding principles. One, decisions must be evidence based. Two, transparency and public accountability must be the norm. Three, fairness must reach households and businesses. Four, reforms must be sustainable over the long term. And finally, five, responsibility must be shared across government, industry, and community. Additionally, Madam President, Phase 1 targets three priorities. One, imports and food security. Two, utilities. And three, housing, with an emphasis on consumer education and protection. Efforts include modernizing import processes, ongoing duty relief reviews for key produce, and providing resources to help households grow basic food at home. We will enhance regulatory enforcement timelines within the utility sector, conduct a thorough review of our energy transition to confirm that renewable adoption is appropriately scaled and cost effective, and increase price transparency to ensure accountability remains clear and consistent. With regards to housing, Madam President, we have introduced a contemporary landlord and tenant framework for consultation with emphasis with which encompasses standardized lease arrangements, equitable security deposit regulations, clearly defined rights and remedies, and expedited dispute resolution mechanisms. Furthermore, we have initiated industry consultations and commenced public engagement through the Government Citizens Forum. Madam President, because informed consumers drive fair markets, the ministry will launch a consumers' right campaign so that every resident knows their options, understands their protections, and can seek readiness with confidence. Madam President, in a motion to provide immediate relief while continuing to seek other cost-saving initiatives, wholesalers and retailers have been invited to participate in a short-term price reduction on selected national brands commonly purchased by families. The reduction will be shared equally, 10% from wholesalers and 10% from the realtors, for a 9-month period starting November 1st. This initiative is in addition to weekly in-store discounts and applies to essential categories such as baby formula, rice, dairy, toiletries, and cleaning supplies. Participating entities include BGA, Butterfield and Vallis, Viking Feeds, The Marketplace, Dunkless Dairy, and the Lindos Group. Additionally, we are pleased to announce that the garden market has agreed and will be participating stakeholders in the coming days. Information of cost saving products will continue to be featured by the ministry's website, costofliving.gov.pm. Madam President, this agenda aligns and builds on a tangible evidence this government continues to demonstrate. This includes budget measures that lower costs across the economy, including a flat 10% custom duty on building materials, currently above that rate, the elimination of duty on all motor vehicle parts, a reduction of tax on fuel used for electrical generations to 4% per liter from the 1st of July 2025. Madam President, the Cost of Living Commission will oversee implementation and monitoring, ensuring delivery of reform, recommending regulatory safeguards, and providing quarterly reports with support from the ministry. Updates on progress will be made available on the Cost of Living website and via official government channels as, as reforms are coordinated among partners, ministries, and industry stakeholders. I would like to extend my gratitude to Chairman Ms. Michelle Jackson, Deputy Chairman Mr. Neville Grant of the Cost of Living Commission, along with private sector partners, public sector experts for their dedication and collaboration. The principles of unity, equality, and measurable outcomes underpin our approach. Phase one's transition and consultation to implementation introduces saving measures and establishes a foundation for comprehensive reform in imports, utilities, and housing. Madam President, the ministry will advance priority legislative initiatives as outlined in the agenda, reporting to this honorable Senate on a quarterly basis. It is important to note that Bermuda has taken concrete steps to address affordability through policy development, collaboration, collaborative partnership, and practical action. Thank you, Madam President.
And thank you, Senator Lindsay Simmons, for your Minister of Home Affairs. And I believe you have a second statement.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
You can proceed when you're ready.
Okay. Madam President, I rise to update this honorable Senate on the work that the Ministry of Home Affairs has pursued to modernize Bermuda's landlord and tenant laws. This fulfills the 2025 Three and Speech commitment to complete amendments to the Landlord and Tenant Act and deliver fair, transparent, and enforceable housing systems. Madam President, for 50 years, our rental market has operated under two outdated statutes, the Landlord and Tenant Act 1974 and the Rent Increase Domestic Premises Control Act 1978. Candidly, Madam President, these laws were enacted and served a different era, not a reflective of modern times. Challenges include fragmentation, duplication, and inconsistencies. Clear limits on deposits or late fees are practical imperfections and further fail effective remedies the ongoing challenges of enforceable repair obligations and do not adequately prohibit harassment or unlawful evictions. Dispute resolutions through the existing framework relies on magistrates' court, which is too often costly, adversarial, and difficult to access. Madam President, consistent with our mandate to reduce the cost of living and strengthen housing security, the ministry has advanced a consultation draft that seeks to repeal and replace both acts with a single modern framework. The ministry's intention is firm to eliminate redundancy, ensure consistency, strengthen enforcement, and promote fairness and accountability for both landlords and tenants. This reform is a core element of the government's Affordable Bermuda's agenda and honors our platform pledge to finalize landlord-tenant amendments that support positive rental relationships and protects complement parties. Madam President, the proposed Landlord and Tenant Bill 2025 would, among other measures, set a streamlined, consistent regime for security deposit and late fees, establish a clear timeline and for repairs and terminations, prohibit harassment, lockouts, and unlawful evictions, create a specialist tribunal to deliver faster, less costly, and less adversarial outcomes, and address rental arrears through a process capable of quickly resolving cases compared with an average 6 months today. Madam President, this reform seeks balance. Landlords will benefit from clearer obligations, efficient enforcement, and reduced risk. Tenants will gain protection from unfair practices and timely recourse when issues arise. Together, we aim to restore confidence in a system that is too often fails to deliver prompt, practical justice. Madam President, between the 24th of September and the 31st of October 2025, the ministry conducted a transparent, inclusive consultation. We engaged the Bar Council, landlords, tenants, advocacy groups, commercial property owners, conveyance attorneys, corporations, and public agencies. Submissions were received through the Government Citizens Forum, a virtual feedback forum, and the direct correspondence to the ministry. A summary of findings will be published in November 2025 to inform final policies and legislative drafting ahead of tabling. Madam President, the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2025 further supports the government's effort to address access to housing and seeks to further support increased supply and support amicable tenancies. Madam President, in the coming weeks, the ministry will review, refine, and incorporate the recommendations received and continue engagement with stakeholders. Consultation does not end with this update. We will not bring forward a bill that fails to solve the problems identified. We will keep working until the final legislation reflects the progress the public deserves. Madam President, through this reform, we act on the voices of Bermudians. We will ensure that the landlord and tenant laws reflect our shared values of equality, accountability, and respect. Success will be measured by advancing modern legislation underpinned by a fairer framework that improves access to justice and supports everyone who rents a home, provides a home, and calls Bermuda home. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Lindsay Simmons, the Junior Minister for Home Affairs. And now, Senators, we will hear the fourth statement from Senator the Honorable Kim Wilkerson, JP, Attorney General and Minister of Justice, on the launch of public consultation on jury reform. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning to you and good morning to the listening public. Madam President, I rise today to inform this Honorable Senate that the Ministry of Justice has launched a public consultation on comprehensive jury reform, a vital step toward modernizing Bermuda's jury system and ensuring that our jury process reflects the values of fairness, inclusion, and accessibility that underpin our democracy. The consultation, which opened on Monday, November 3rd, will remain open until December 31st, 2025. Members of the public are invited to share their views at forum.gov.bm or to attend one of the several public meetings that will be hosted by a selection of parish councils throughout the island. The first of these took place last week, hosted by Sandys Parish Council. The second will take place next week when the Warwick and Paget Parish Councils co-host a meeting at Paget Gospel Chapel on Wednesday, November 19th at 5:30. Further dates and locations will be announced in due course. Madam President, the jury system is a cornerstone of public participation in justice. It reflects our shared responsibility to ensure that trials are fair, impartial, and accessible. However, as with all institutions, the system must evolve to meet modern realities, social, technological, and demographic. Following extensive review and comparative study of other jurisdictions, the ministry is now seeking the public's feedback on a series of proposed reforms to the Jurors Act 1974 and related legislation. Madam President, there are a raft of proposals up for consultation that affect juries in criminal trials. I will take the opportunity to briefly outline them now. 1. Reducing the number of jurors in criminal trials. Bermuda currently has the largest jury panels amongst all British overseas territories. The proposal is to reduce the number of jurors from 12 to 8, with potential exceptions for more serious crimes such as murder and treason, and to amend the majority required for a verdict accordingly. This aims to streamline proceedings without undermining fairness or legitimacy. Number 2, medical exemption without court appearance. This reform would allow individuals to be excused from jury duty on medical grounds without the need to appear in person. I have heard too often of people experiencing severe health challenges that have left them bedridden, battling cancer, unable to drive, feed themselves, or speak for themselves, who have been ordered to appear in court for jury service despite clear medical evidence of their incapacitation. This change balances practicality, compassion, and respect for privacy. 3, increasing the maximum age for service to 75. Many retired Bermudians have expressed a desire to serve, but are currently barred by age. The proposal extends eligibility to age 75, while allowing those aged 70 to 75 to decline service without explanation. 4, expanding eligibility beyond the parliamentary register. Currently, eligibility is limited to registered parliamentary voters. We propose considering expanding this to include Bermudians not registered to vote, as well as spouses of Bermudians, permanent resident certificate holders, British overseas citizens resident in Bermuda, and long-term work permit holders, provided that we are able to maintain the guarantee of a jury of one's peers. 5, relaxing restrictions for individuals with criminal convictions. The proposal raises the threshold for disqualification to offenses punishable by 10 years or more, rather than 3 years or more, and narrows the exclusion period for those who have served sentences in the past 7 years. This promotes rehabilitation and inclusion within a fair modern jury justice system. 6, reducing the number of individuals required for a jury panel. This proposal would reduce the total number summoned to form a panel from which jurors are selected, improving efficiency and public resource management. 7, increasing jury compensation. The ministry proposes a significant increase in the statutory allowance for jurors. This adjustment is being considered to reflect the importance of civic duty, the financial realities of modern life in Bermuda, and mirror the minimum hourly wage. 8, judicial discretion to excuse jurors based on employer request. Judges would have the discretion to excuse jurors temporarily at an employer's request, ensuring flexibility without automatic exemptions. 9, reducing automatic exemptions. This proposal removes outdated exemptions for certain categories, including members of the special court panel, some public utility workers, and those exempted by cabinet secretary opinion. This strengthens equality and fairness in jury selection. 10, allowing jury separation after deliberations have begun. Allowing jurors to separate after deliberations allowing juries to separate after deliberations have begun will support juror well-being and judicial economy, provided strong safeguards remain in place. 11, updating language regarding persons with disabilities. This proposal removes outdated terminology such as dumb from the Act, replacing it with nonverbal. This promotes dignity, inclusivity, and consistency across legislation. 12, enabling persons with disabilities to serve with technological assistance. Allowing persons with disabilities to serve as jurors with appropriate technological aids marks an important step forward toward accessibility and full participation in civic life, and is a powerful step toward a more inclusive, representative, and modern justice system. Judge-only trials in limited circumstances. In specific cases, such as where there is evidence of jury tampering, potential community bias, or for certain exceptional offenses, the proposal allows for jury-only trials. This would require a constitutional amendment. The ministry therefore seeks public feedback to guide further review. 14, AI-assisted juror vetting. The consultation also explores the potential use of AI-assisted vetting tools to identify potential conflicts of interest or relationships between jurors, defendants, and witnesses, enhancing transparency and integrity in jury selection. Madam President, additionally, we are seeking the public's feedback on changes to juries in civil proceedings in 4 areas of reform, introducing two alternate jurors to safeguard against trial disruption, allowing preemptory challenges, and setting their order in line with criminal trial practice to promote fairness and perceived impartiality, clarifying the process for judges' summations in jury deliberations, and for granting judges discretion to continue a trial after the death or discharge of a juror rather than requiring written consent from both parties. These proposals reflect best practices from comparative jurisdictions and seek to strengthen fairness, efficiency, and resilience in Bermuda's civil justice system. Madam President, the government's aim through this consultation is to build consensus around a jury system that is inclusive, efficient, and credible, and one that better reflects the community it serves. The proposals are by no means final. They are an invitation through the consultation to the legal community, civil society, and every Bermudian to help shape the next chapter of justice in our island. I therefore encourage all members of the public to visit forum.gov.bm to review the proposals in detail and share their views before December 31st. Together, we can ensure that Bermuda's jury system remains a symbol of public confidence, civic pride, and justice for all. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Minister Wilkerson, AG, and Minister of Justice, for your report. Statement. Moving on with our orders of the day, agenda. Item number 9, introduction of bills. There are none. Item number 10, the first reading of public bills. The following public bills have been received from the Honorable House of Assembly and are hereby read for the first time. Their titles are Revenue Amendment Act 2025, the Charities Amendment Act 2025. Senators, the first of these, the Revenue Amendment Act, will be taken up in our orders of the day later in this meeting. Item number 11, the first reading of private bills. There are none. Item number 12, question period. Senators, we will now entertain the questions from the statements that have been delivered this morning. And I would just like to acknowledge the presence of Pandora Glassfoot, the Permanent Secretary for Home Affairs. Oh, there we go. And I don't know the other lady's name. All right, Senators, and with statement number 1, would any senators care to speak on the statement that was delivered by the Honorable Crystal Caesar, JP, Minister of Education, entitled Update on Gifted and Talented Education? Yes. Sorry, just give me a minute. Senator Tawana.
Thank you, Madam President.
Tanner.
My question is regarding the resources in terms of staffing and cost of affording these staff. Will additional resources be hired by the Department of Education to facilitate teaching the youth, the gifted youth? That's the first question. My second question is, if new staff will not be hired, will there be training available, or has training been provided? Because if we've already started testing the students, have we given any training to the educators who will be dealing with gifted students and talking about delivery methods? And then my third is the financial aspect of this. How much did it cost to implement the testing? And if we will have to hire new educators, how much will it cost to hire them, or how much is training? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tannock. You want to respond or have other questions?
I can
You'll
respond, yes, and then take others in.
Minister, yes.
Thank you.
Minister Caesar, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, with regard to resources, we are at the beginning stage of ascertaining what's required in order to meet some of the students' needs. And so that would also fall into the question with regard to costs, et cetera. So as it stands right now, this work is being done by ministry and department staff, which are aptly able to identify young people. There isn't any specific training that's required. It is simply just ensuring that teachers have the differentiated learning strategies with which many teachers already have that, because as one would know, there are students of different levels within different classrooms, and so they have to devise their learning plans such that young people can be appropriately taught within that particular classroom. So when a teacher does identify someone that may be gifted in a particular area, they will be identified, and depending on what that area is, we need to see the number of students. So we're still at the fledgling stage. So in terms of specific resources that have been procured, we are at a stage where we're trying to understand what the numbers are, who the students are, and what services we can provide. So it would be difficult to give a specific number at this particular stage, as we are standing up this particular initiative as it stands. So I'm hoping that I gave sufficient answers to all three of those questions in terms of resources, training, and how much to test and train. Again, this is still in the fledgling stages. We are identifying students. We have teachers, who are aptly able to identify young people who are gifted. And so I say watch this space, because we're looking for some great things, and whatever resources we believe are required, be it additional programs, be it collaboration with other bodies in the public and corporate bodies that may be able to provide specific training for young people. That's what we will be looking to do.
Thank you, Minister. Sorry. Senator Tannock, you have.
Yes, thank you, Minister. I completely agree. Educators are well versed in adapting to learning skills for students. As a former educator myself, I had to make sure that every lesson plan had enrichment and enhancement opportunities for students. However, when we talk about gifted students, there are strategies. There are internationally known strategies for teaching gifted students that your classroom educator who has a classroom full of kids may not have the opportunity to implement. And what I am concerned about, while I applaud the government for this initiative, is putting an extra burden on our facilitators, on our teachers who haven't had the training necessary or haven't been given additional skills. So, my concern, I think it's fantastic that we're doing this, but my concern is really for the educators who are already overburdened, right? Not only are they teaching kids, they're bringing kids lunch, they're bringing kids school uniforms. And now we're asking them to identify gifted students without giving them the strategies and necessary tools that they might need, and to say that, any classroom teacher can identify a gifted child. Well, yeah, you can identify somebody who scores high on a test, but it's a lot more to that. And there are strategies for implementation. And I wanted to make sure that our teachers, not only the students, are being supported in this.
Thank you, Senator Tenick. Would any other senator care to ask questions? Senator Victoria Cunningham, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, and good morning. Love this statement. I definitely feel that we need to be offering support in these areas. I would ask how many students have currently been identified and how many are recommended or identified each year. And then as a supplementary to that, what mechanisms are in place to ensure that identification is equitable across all our public schools? And in particular, using other organizations like Center for Talented Youth, or other charities or departments within the Ministry of Education or Department of Education. And then I have a. Do you want me to keep going? Okay, so then a second question. What are the key performance indicators for this program, and how will outcomes be tracked and published? And then as a supplementary to that, we've obviously got the dual enrollment program through our public schools into Bermuda College, but would there be benchmarks for these gifted students to move up grade levels, and how would that be? How would that look? What would the benchmarks be? And then a third question.
Third, might as well.
Given
Present it.
our alignment with, Future Ready Skills and the signature program, especially in our senior schools, I guess how will this program align with that? And I recognize that the minister mentioned the various association or affiliations with NASA, BIOS, BZS, BUI, etc. But how can we ensure that these students are getting those pathways into those roles? And then as a supplementary to that, would there be, through this program, internships, mentoring for these students to, if they have an interest in these things, in these areas? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cunningham. Minister.
Thank you, Madam President. So if I could, I can indicate to Senator Tenick with regard to her clarification of her statement, which we take on board. I should note, and that I did mention within my statement, that there is a team of people, not just classroom teachers, who are supporting this particular initiative, which includes the school leaders, parents, and the MTSS team or coaches, who also will be assisting in ensuring that teachers and or the school in particular are able to identify and differentiate the individual students who may be eligible for the program. So there is a team of individuals. It's not just up to the school teachers. This is a community effort, a school community effort. With regard to the number of students that have been identified, we're actually in the process of outlining what criteria, what there would be as it pertains to what is a gifted student, what particular area that falls in. So those numbers are to be determined. Again, this is an update, just giving everyone the information that this is something that we've identified and we want to continue to grow. And so we're in the process of identifying the students. So once we get hard and fast numbers, we can do that. And so same with any KPI. So in developing this program, we will be determining what are we expecting? What returns? What do we want to see? How do we want to meet and measure and track how we're doing in terms of identifying and how those children are progressing through this program? And I love what you say, or what Senator Cunningham has mentioned with regard to ensuring that these young people have future ready skills for particular areas of study. And the idea is absolutely that they would be able to, if they're in a particular area, let's say they are, I don't know, a violinist, and we could potentially have a program where that young person has lessons through menuing, and then is identified to maybe attend some sort of music study overseas, etc. So there is we're looking to do great things with this, and we want to nurture. And each child obviously is going to be different as to what path they will have, but we want to ultimately ensure that young people who are identified as gifted in a particular area, we can put a program around that young person and support and nurture that creative talent. So if it is something that they'd like to pursue beyond school years, that we provide and make those collaborations with different institutions and or corporate partners so that they can continue to do that. And so again, I appreciate the comments, because it's actually because we are still developing the gifted program. This helps us to also round out our considerations. And so I do appreciate the feedback.
Thank you, Minister. Any further questions on this statement? Hearing none, we will then move on to the second statement. And before I do, I would just like to acknowledge the presence of Ms. Karine Marshall, the Rent Control Commissioner, who's in the chamber. Welcome to you as well. Right, moving on to the second statement, which was delivered by Senator Lindsay Simmons, entitled The Affordable Bermuda Agenda Cost of Living Report. Would any senator care to ask questions? Yes. Senator John White, Vice President, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I've read the report word for word, and I've just got a couple of questions and comments. One is, in regards to the Cost of Living Commission, I think government have certainly appointed two excellent people for in the chair and deputy chair roles. I've worked with both of them in the private sector for many years, and so I think they're excellent selections. But when I look at, I'm trying to understand sort of the mandate of this commission. So are there strict terms of reference that have been designed and created for this commission? Because as I look at the wording of the report, there's some sentences that kind of concern me a little bit. One is the Cost of Living Commission is looking to promote awareness of tracking the impact on consumer prices owing to the government intervention to support cost reduction. So we've already heard that the wholesalers and food retailers have voluntarily reduced their prices by 10%. So each, and that's great for community. Is it envisioned that that potentially involuntary reductions will be mandated as a result of the commission's work, maybe in the form of legislation? So I guess, is this a collaborative effort where parties need to buy into it, or will this ultimately potentially become a situation where the essential commodity providers are being forced to make cost reductions to support the objectives of the government? So those are my questions, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator John White. Senator Cunningham, you have questions?
Thank you, Madam President. My questions relate to the food security 20% reduction on essential goods, and it's how will government measure whether that 20% reduction actually reduces household expenses meaningfully? And as a secondary, or I'll just say as a second question, how will these initiatives ensure that relief reaches all our, the lower income houses rather than being spread too thinly across all consumers?
Thank you. Senator Tannock, I think you have questions on this statement.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. First, I'd like to congratulate the government on this initiative. When I saw that it was launched, I made sure to forward the information to as many people as possible so that they were aware of savings that could be had. However, I do have a question around the items that were listed. So, for instance, I saw for baby formula, I only saw Similac with iron. I did not see any other baby formula, and baby formula is very expensive. So my question is, how were these items selected when we had the consultation group, when we had the summit, where participants asked to identify items that were most costly in the household and brands, and were those then given to the stores, or were the stores who are participating allowed to select the brands themselves? How does this exactly work? I guess it goes to actually both Senator Cunningham and Senator White's questions about meaningful reduction and also participation in the program. How are the items that were selected? How were they chosen based on what the participants in the consultation in the summit selected? Because when I see one type of baby formula on the list for all the stores, I got quite concerned because we know how expensive baby formula is. So that's just a microcosm of my bigger question, which is, how were the items selected? Who selects the items? And how is it tied back to, like Senator Cunningham said, measuring impact? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tannock.
Thank you, Madam President. The RAA is slated for that date. The mandate is informed by legislation, oversight over essential goods, and investigations per the current regulations. In addition to the legislative, the ministry seeks to address affordability broadly. The Commission has agreed to assist in the revision and amendment of the legislation as required in addition to the current remit. Their efforts will be paired with communication efforts as shared in the statement. The reduction has been offered by realtors and wholesalers while greater legislative reforms are being advanced. Communication efforts have been coupled with its launch. And I'm just waiting for one more answer. Actually, I believe I've answered everything, Madam President.
Senator Tannock.
Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Simmons. I don't think I heard the answer to my question. How were the items? So how are items selected? Were they based on participants' request and our information on what the highest cost items are and what the brands most routinely purchased are? How were they selected? And will there be a rolling schedule of items that are changed out?
Okay, I kind of think I did answer, but I'll go into depth a little bit more. It is important to note that the expansion of essential goods has been declared by the government's platform and during speech. The retailers and wholesalers were invited to expand on these items that are currently listed in the schedule of items for a 9-month period. Baby formula, how are they identified? The participating stores and wholesalers selected the affordable basket of goods based on 33 essential goods. Additional items were added. So the wholesalers and the retailers selected which items through consultation with them.
Yes, Senator White. Vice President White, you have a
I'm not
clarification issue.
sure I fully understood the response to my question. So it has thus far been a voluntary program. Will that remain as part of an objective of the commission and government to ensure that this is a voluntary program to meet its objectives, or is there potential for an involuntary through legislation to force providers to lower their prices or costs? Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
So, Madam President, yes, it is a collaborative effort in the first instance, and legislation may make it voluntary. We're working on it right now. As we stated, this is still this is phase one.
What legislation wouldn't make it involuntary, then not voluntary, just for clarification.
Sorry, this is a voluntary program for 9 months, and it's not going to remain.
Okay, I'm I'm not sure. I think I'm hearing that it's voluntary now, but has the potential to be legislative to make it involuntary.
It's a broader legislation reform, and operational relief is refined.
Minister Wilkinson, you wanted
I
clarification.
did. Thank you,
Sorry.
Madam President.
AG?
I thought I might
Assist.
assist with how the government is looking at carrying this mandate at the moment. And as you would see, if from the affordable basket, that affordable basket was created in collaboration with all of the key, Lindos and Marketplace, the key providers of food, Butterfield and Vallis, and so on the island. I think we believe it is in our interest to collaborate as much as possible. So the idea of a legislation to force the hand of the suppliers of food isn't contemplated immediately. And I think that we have to examine how the voluntary program is going. And I, for one, was incredibly impressed to see, the retailers coming to the table and pitching in on the effort. And I think if anyone attended the summit, the cost of living summit, for I think average Bermudians to be able to hear firsthand from that business sector what goes into their pricing in a way that we never had an opportunity to understand before is something that underlies even more, I think, why these efforts must be collaborative at first. And we see that we have to examine the results of those collaborative efforts and see where we stand. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. AG Wilkinson, your explanation is appreciated. With that said, I think the questions have been answered. So we'll now move on to the third statement that was provided by Senator Lindsay Simmons, and that was entitled The Update on the Landlord and Tenant Act 2025. Would any senator care to ask questions on this statement? Senator Tannock, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I think that I did hear this in Senator Simmons' statement, but can you just clarify, will we be looking to include in the act a pro forma lease that landlords or tenants can look at or can use as a template that is governed by the revised act? Because right now I know I often get a lot of requests about, do you have any lease templates? And I'm like, I'm not that type of lawyer. So, that it's an area where people are always looking for clarity. And I always say, well, get one from one of the estate agents and make sure that's compliant with the act. But I wanted to ask, will there be a pro forma lease template that includes all the provisions required under the new act in this revision?
Thank you, Senator Tannock. Would any other senator care to ask questions? Yes, Senator Cunningham, you have the floor.
Thank you, and thank you for the delivery of the statement. I have, or I guess it's one and maybe a supplemental. So will there be a transition period for landlords and tenants to adjust to these new obligations? And then secondary to that, supplemental to that, is how will existing leases be treated under the law, given that some are, 3 to 5 year terms? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Senator John White, you have a question.
No.
Statement.
Just to follow up on Senator Tannock's comment, having been party to a lease in another jurisdiction where the lease was defined by law, every single lease in that province had the exact same wording. It made it very easy both as a tenant and as a landlord to understand. So the greater the consistency, I think the more beneficial will be to all Bermudians in their dealings, whether they're a tenant or landlord. So
Mhm. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, Mr. White. Senator White. There will be a template, but the template will not be mandatory. Senator Tannock. You're welcome. Yes, this is also intended for the transition period. And for the existing leases to be continued. Thank you, Madam President. I think that answers all the questions.
Thank you, Senator Lindsay Simmons, and thank you, senators, for your questions. Therefore, now, senators, we will move on to the final statement that was delivered by the Honorable Kim Wilkerson, Attorney General and Minister of Justice, and that was the launch of public consultation on jury reform. Would any senator care to ask questions on this statement? Senator John White, you have the floor.
Maybe just to thank the Minister of Justice, AG, for certainly educating me and I'm sure many others as to the current system, which, based on the suggested recommendations, sounds very outdated and in need. So, broadly speaking, I was very favorable with the recommendations that she outlined, and I look forward to supporting the progress of this as more community feedback is obtained by the government on this. So just want to, thank the minister for, providing the updates for our education and for improving the protocols and legislation and jury duty, which is a very important function for any jurisdiction. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator John White. Would any senator care to speak? Senator Cunningham, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I will echo Senator White's comments and believe I asked a question a few weeks ago in this chamber. And I think following on from that, well, I think, what is the timeline for this legislation to come through? So we've got the consultation to the end of the year. I assume there's obviously been a raft of proposals already made, which, as my colleague mentioned, many seem, fairly innocuous. But what kind of timeline can we expect for that legislation to come forward? And then I think, people will be asking themselves, we do have a very small and close-knit population. So how will these reforms ensure that our jury remains broadly representative? So, making sure that we have the jury of peers.
My first question is, are we taking advantage of the jurors that are currently serving to ask them to do any type of exit interview or exit questionnaire once they finish serving? For instance, we just had a jury pool a jury that would have been on a 5-week murder trial. And it would have been interesting to hear, after numerous delays and legal arguments, what their feedback was. And I believe that case actually lost 3 jurors over the course of the trial, maybe 2. But it would be very interesting if we did some type of exit interview or questionnaire for our current serving jurors to find out a little bit more about their experience and what the challenges were. That's my first one. And my second one is, have we given any more thought of trial by judge that is, present in several jurisdictions if we have an issue where it may be jury tampering, and are we exploring any fear of the jury and jury tampering, and have we explored trial by judge only, not only for summary offenses, but also for indictable offenses only.
Thank you, Senator Tennant. I think those are the questions. So, Mr. Wilkerson.
Thank you,
AG,
Madam President. I was just pausing to see if there were any
Other
more.
questions?
Okay, the first question, the timeline for the actual completion of the legislation, I think that is what. And I want to thank Senator Cunningham because she asked the question, I think, at the last sitting as to when the consultation would start. And because I publicly answered her and I said October, or I think I said November, I wanted to make sure that it did start, and it was due to go up on the October 31st by the hurricane. And so we didn't put it up that day because we thought that would be a couple of days of lost engagement. So thank you. The I can't work back to when the legislation will be completed. The intention is that we should have drafts done before the end of this next legislative year, so by July. However, some things will depend on what comes out of the consultation, what comes out of the feedback. I mean, we may get propositions from the feedback, which are things that we didn't contemplate. That might take a little more consideration. So we do want to be open to making sure that we have proper time to consider, analyze all of the feedback, and then work toward the legislation. Thank you. The second question was, how do we make sure that the jury pool remains diverse? I think that is really what the whole point of many of the reforms are. And I think that, extending the age potentially gets more seniors in the pool, considering going beyond the voter list to people who may not have Bermudian status, but they lived in Bermuda for a very long time. They consider this their home. They are a peer in many circumstances. And I think it's certainly not in the legislative proposals, but we are also looking at the mechanisms for how people are called into the first pool, because consistently we hear people saying, I've served jury duty many times, and other people say, I've never been called. I'd love to be called. So we have to examine what is happening there. So is there a problem in the mechanism for actually calling people? So we're looking at that as well. But that is the whole idea, to make sure that we have a diverse pool and that it remains diverse. Senator Tannock asks whether we had explicitly considered, I guess, a stakeholder group, which would be exit interviews from jurors. We have not, and particularly in relation to recent cases, because in certain circumstances there could be appeals. So we didn't want to immediately look at people who just stepped down, but we would hope that people who have served give their input. I'm one of those people, and it's a very, very unique experience, and you're able to give input that wouldn't otherwise come to the table. But I think that it is a good suggestion. So I will take that on board to assess if there are ways to identify and perhaps target that group of people to make sure that they aren't overlooked in this consultation. So thank you for that suggestion. The fourth question was around trial by judge only. That is in the considerations already. And because jury tamper has been an issue that has been raised, and also we have considered where the matters in a case could be so complex that a lay jury might not be able to properly assess the evidence. those could be the kinds of cases when we think about cases in the future that may deal with, cryptocurrency, digital assets, things that were not even contemplated at the moment. Those are the cases that could be ripe for judge only, if that judge, of course, is a specialist judge, which is also something that we have to be thinking about for the future. Thank you for these questions. They've given me food for thought.
So thank you, Attorney General and Minister of Justice, for answering the questions. And with that said, that brings us to the end of the questions of the statements that were delivered. No, of the statements that were delivered. We will now move on to the questions that had been presented by senators for oral response today. And the first is questions from Senator Victoria Cunningham to the Honorable Crystal Caesar, spokesperson for finance, and for her to provide oral responses. So Senator Cunningham would like for you to state your question.
Thank
At
you.
this time, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Will the Honourable Minister please inform the Senate whether the government has developed a comprehensive disaster risk financing strategy to enhance fiscal resilience in the face of increasing climate-related hazards, particularly hurricanes and winter storms, and within that framework, whether the use of a catastrophe bond or other parametric insurance instrument, such as that recently issued by the government of Jamaica with World Bank support, has been considered? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. The Ministry of Finance monitors financial risk reporting on these to the Financial Policy Council. It has been considered, and the view has been taken that given our robust infrastructure, catastrophe bonds or other parametric insurance instruments would not have been required. But consideration will continue to be examining the support of financial preparedness in response to any evolving climate risk.
A supplementary.
So then I have a supplementary to that. Is the government happy or okay with the level of insurance protection that they buy, I'm assuming, from the private market on the island?
Just for the listening public and Madam President, just awaiting a response. I assume it would be affirmative, but I will not respond without confirmation.
So you're waiting for confirmation.
And Madam President, while we wait, if there are other questions, I would welcome them so that we can try and be expeditious in getting those responses.
Senator Tannock, you have additional question?
Yes. Has the government taken out a catastrophe bond?
Madam President, I can respond to Senator Tannock. In my original response, I had indicated that a robust infrastructure and catastrophe bonds and other parametric insurance instruments have been considered, and but not necessarily required at this time. But we will continue to review our fiscal preparedness for evolving climate risks. So the answer is yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. The answer is no, not at this time.
Not at this
My
time.
apologies. Yes, it has been considered. Yes,
Has been
but we do
considered,
not
but not at
actually
this
have it
time.
correct. Yes,
Thank you for that response.
yes. I'm just still waiting to see if I I've gotten an answer.
Would you like to?
Yeah, in the interest of time, Madam President, like I said, I believe the answer is in the affirmative, but I can confirm with Senator Cunningham at a later time
Yes.
so that we're not waiting. I think we could also explain to the listening public that there is a bit of a delay
Mhm.
in what the supporting technical officers who are off-site have, and I think it's about 14 seconds, so they have to hear it,
Mhm.
respond, type, and it has to come back. So sometimes that's why we have a bit of a delay. It's not because people don't know, but I do want to undertake to get that response to you.
Thank you, Minister.
No problem.
Madam AG, yes.
Madam President, yeah, I thought I might help. And, members may be aware that prior to sitting here, I sat in another capacity, and where I would have had a conflict of interest. So I am aware that the government considers it has adequate insurance. The covers are reviewed annually through our on-island brokers as well as overseas. And on the cat bond question, while we consider that the protections in place are currently sufficient based on the level of our building structures and the history, there is an openness to receiving a quote on a parametric cover that would trigger on, we've heard of Cat 6s that would trigger on the above Cat 5.
Thank you.
So we can report back on that. Thank
Yes. Thank you, Madam AG, for that response. Senators, so we'll move on then with the next item on the agenda, and that is the Senator the Honorable Crystal Caesar, spokesperson for finance, to provide oral response to the parliamentary questions by Senator Tawana Tannock. Senator Tannock, would you like to present your question? Even though it was presented for oral responses today, I would like for you to read your question again. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam President.
Your first question.
First question. Prior to the passing of the Public Service Superannuation PSSF Stabilization Amendment Act 2025, police officers were able to pay more into the scheme to receive a 5-year bump upon retirement. Can the Honorable Minister please inform the Senate if this benefit is still available to officers? Do you want me to read them all at one time or?
Minister, one at a time.
One? Okay.
Yes.
So I can respond in the affirmative, yes, that this benefit is still available to officers. We should note that there are members of a special group, that is police officers below the rank of superintendent, for fire officers below the rank of divisional officers, prison officers below the rank of deputy commissioner, and the Bermuda Regiment staff contribute to the PSSF at a higher contribution rate than members of the non-special group. As at October 1, this rate is 10.2% versus 8.7% for the non-special group. And the provision of additional service of 5 years in the computation of pensionable service is indeed still available.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Minister. My second question is, can the Honorable Minister please inform the Senate what consideration, if any, was given to providing police officers the option to transfer to the new pension scheme, allowing them to remain employed until 60, but for those who have plans and want to retire, stay on the current scheme and retire as planned?
Okay, thank you, Madam President. Consultants modeled a significant number of scenarios. However, the scope was on sustainability and the reforms and the accepted delivery on this objective, excuse me, was gradually moving to the retirement age for police to 60 years. Police do have the option of retiring early after completion of 25 years of service with a full pension at 60.
Thank you. And my last
And your
question.
third question, yes.
Yes. Can the Honorable Minister please inform the Senate whether expatriate police officers will have to remain on island for several extra years to get the benefits under a different pension package than the one that they agreed to in accepting their contract when they originally arrived on island?
Thank you, Madam President. Those expatriate workers, police officers, sorry, do not have to remain on island in order to get those benefits.
Noted with thank you.
Minister.
Noted with thanks. Thanks, Minister.
Senator Janik, you're happy with the response? This brings us to the end of the questions that were posed for oral responses today. Thank you, senators, and thank you, ministers, for your responses. Senators, that now moves us to the orders of the day, and I would just like to point out that we only have one order of the day, and that is the second reading of the Revenue Amendment Act 2025 to be presented by Senator Lindsey Simmons, Junior Minister of National Security. Item number 2, which is the second reading of the Charities Amendment Act, will be carried over. So, senators, we will now deal with the first item, the second reading of the Revenue Amendment Act 2025, and that's in the name of Senator Lindsey K. Simmons, Junior Minister for National Security. And before you start, can I just acknowledge the presence in the chamber of Mr. Roderick Masters, the Principal Customs Officer, as well as Mr. Richard Amos, Assistant Collector of Customs. Welcome to you both. Senator Simmons, you can begin to present your
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that provisions of Standing Order 25 be granted so that the Senate may now proceed with the second reading of the bill entitled Revenue Amendment Act 2025.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the bill entitled Revenue Amendment Act 2025 be now read a second time.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Thank you. Madam President, the bill amends the Revenue Act 1898, the Principal Act, for the purpose of tightening Bermuda's border control and security. It seeks to amend the Principal Act by expanding the information provided in a manifest that is to be delivered to the Customs Department. It increases the types of advanced passenger data and information which must be included in aircraft arrival and departure manifest, including information provided by private jets. More importantly, the amendments address specific AML, ATF deficiencies identified by the CFATF assessors. The Act also provides that the exact information as required by Customs is to be prescribed by notice made under Section 3A and 6B. The notices will specify the detailed requirements, including the means of transmission and exactly when and where the information is to be delivered to Customs. Madam President, the Customs Department currently relies on limited information and data from the airlines, which is delivered after an aircraft has departed for or from Bermuda. This process does not accord with international accepted border protection and control strategies relating to the apprehension of or the removal of a passenger from an aircraft prior to its departure. In this uncertain border security climate, the bill allows for the expansion of the data to be collected and included in an aircraft manifest. It puts in place a recognized worldwide system to manage risks. The amendments will facilitate the timely processing of legitimate travelers. They will ensure that all aircraft departing for or from Bermuda deliver advanced data elements in line with international recognized timeframes, standards, formats, and rules. The rest of the world currently receives this data, and Bermuda must modernize our efforts in order to catch up. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Senator Lindsay, would any senator care to speak on this bill? Senator Cunningham, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And I think I can say that the opposition supports this bill, obviously seeking to modernise and tighten our border control and customs framework is a good thing, and obviously be in line with international best practice. I do have a few questions to ensure the balance between, our security and privacy. So the first one is, how will compliance with PIPA, Personal Information Protection Act, be monitored in practice, particularly around the collection, sharing, and retention of that passenger data? Second question, who will have access to this data? Will it just be limited to customs, or will it be other agencies like immigration, police, national security, etc.? And then thirdly, what system upgrades, if any, or integration costs will this impose on airlines or our customs department, and who will be responsible for covering those? Ultimately, we support the intent. It's just, I think we need to, if we're enhancing our customs or border patrols and security, we need to make sure that we continue that commitment to privacy and accountability.
Mhm. While we are waiting, any other senator care to ask questions on this bill? Senator Tannock? You
Yes,
have
Madam
the floor.
President. My question is regarding the collection of the information. So will the current entry forms be revised? Will there be an additional form? How will this additional information be collected?
Thank you. Sorry, you did leave it. It's here. Too many papers on my desk. I know. Sorry, I found it. Yours back, and this is mine.
Thank you, Madam President. To answer the question about will the information be shared, no, unless it's a matter of crime or national security, then that's the only time that it will be shared. And how will compliance be monitored? Customs information powers are contained in the Customs Department Act 1952 with specific provisions that Piper applies. There is a caveat, a carve-out up for enforcement information sharing both local and overseas agencies. And for Senator Tannock's question, collection of information, will current forms be revised? How will it be collected? Yes, information will now be collected electronically, sent by the airlines via a secured electronic means to the Customs ATSG Automatic Targeting System Global. I believe that answers all the questions. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Simmons. If there being no further questions, then we will get you to pass your bill.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the bill entitled Revenue Amendment Act 2025 be now read a second time.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Madam President, I move that Rule 26 be suspended in respect of this bill.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Madam President, I move that the bill entitled Revenue Amendment Act 2025 be now read a third time.
Is there any objection to the third reading? No objection.
Madam President, I move that the bill do now pass.
It has been moved that the bill entitled Revenue Amendment Act 2025 do not pass. Is there an objection to that motion? No objection. The bill is passed.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you very
President.
much, Senator Lindsay Simmons, and thank you to your technical officers who are present this morning. Senators, that brings us to the end of our orders of the day. As I had indicated, the second reading of the Charities Amendment Act 2025 is being carried over. Item number 14, motions, there are none. Item number 15, congratulatory and/or obituary speeches. Would any senator care to speak on that? Senator Lindsay Simmons, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I rise today with immense pride to recognize an outstanding young Bermudian, Ms. Kalash Simons, a shining example of leadership, intellect, and promise, and a true reflection of the strength and potential of Bermuda's youth. Kalash is a remarkable young lady whose life thus far has been marked by excellence, service, and purpose. Having begun her educational journey a year ahead of schedule, she has always demonstrated exceptional maturity, focus, and determination. Her path has been one of steady growth, guided by clear goals and unwavering sense of responsibility. Raised by her loving and devoted mother, Ashley LaVon Smith, Kalash has thrived under the care of a woman who embodies resilience and grace. Ms. Smith, a single mother, has poured daily into her daughter, taking the time to listen, encourage, and nurture her dreams. Their bond stands as a powerful reminder that when we invest in our children with love, time, and attention, we help them build lives rooted in confidence and possibility. Madam President, I've had the pleasure of personally watching Kalash grow over the years from a bright, curious child into a confident young leader. Her presence has always been defined by poise, kindness, and an unmistakable spark of purpose. Madam President, Kalash has served as head girl at every stage of her public school journey. At Francis Patton, the Darwood Middle School, and now the Barclay Institute. This consistent record of leadership is a reflection of not only her academic excellence, but also her character of integrity. She leads by example with humility, respect, and a genuine desire to uplift those around her. In addition to her leadership roles, Kalash is a dual enrollment student, balancing responsibilities at the Barclay Institute with college-level coursework. She demonstrates discipline and ambition beyond her years. Madam President, most recently, Kalash proudly represented Bermuda in the United Kingdom at the House of Commons, where she stood among her peers from across the world, using her voice to represent her country with confidence and distinction. In doing so, She has made her school, her family, and our entire island proud. She is the youngest Bermudian to represent Bermuda. Collage's story is one of perseverance, excellence, and transformative power of public education. She stands as living proof that Bermuda's public school students are capable of achieving greatness when given support, encouragement, and the opportunity. To Miss Ashley Lavon Smith, I extend sincere commendations for your steadfast love and commitment. Your investment in your daughter has shaped not only her future, but also the example she now sets for others. Madam President, to Ms. Collage Simons, on behalf of this honorable chamber, we celebrate you. You have made us proud through your achievements, your leadership, and your representation of Bermuda at the highest level. May you continue to shine brightly, guided by the same humility, discipline, and courage you have brought that has brought you this far. Madam President, honorable senators, I ask that this tribute be entered into the official record of the Senate and that a copy be presented to Ms. Collage Simons in recognition of her outstanding accomplishments of exemplary representation of Bermuda. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Simmons. And before I move on, open the floor to others, I would just like to acknowledge the presence of the opposition leader, Mr. Honorable Robert King, and his dear wife, who are in the gallery. Welcome to you both. Thank you. Would any other senator care to speak? Senator Cunningham?
Thank you, Madam President. And I would like to echo, I don't think I can do quite as much justice as my colleague on the other side of the aisle did, but Collage Simons is quite an exceptional young lady. I saw her a few weeks ago at Bermuda College, and she is quite inspirational. And I think, it is a personal achievement, as was mentioned. It is also something that Bermuda can rightly be proud of. And I think it speaks to our young Bermudians in general. And I also wanted to highlight two other young ladies, Naomi Crofton and Zara Siddiqui, who attended the parliamentary prayer breakfast last week. These are all, as a female in politics, and I will say we are in the majority in this chamber, but not in general. It is inspiring to see the next generation of talent coming through the ranks. So I want to pass on my congratulations as well. And I would also like, it happened just before the end of the last session, but to extend condolences to the Fay family following the passing of their mother, Gwen Fay, who's the mother of my colleague in another place. She was a woman of vision. She was one of the founding members of Summersfield Academy, and I think she's had an impact on generations of Bermudian students, not least her grandchildren. And I would also like to express my deepest condolences to the family of Stuart Allboy, who passed away suddenly a few weeks ago. I had the privilege of attending his funeral last Friday, which was beautiful. I have been a mentor to his son Jordan and his, as they called it, special daughter Jubilee. So I extend my condolences to him, Jordan, and his family during this time. On a lighter note, I would like to congratulate the organisers of the Bermuda Rugby Classic for a safe, successful, and non-headline grabbing tournament this year. There was some outstanding rugby, and the event brings together locals and an awful lot of visitors, and it's great. I'm part of the organising committee for Club 22, which is where the players kind of come down and with their hosts, and just seeing the return visitors every year come down for an event which is generally very well held. It's always great to welcome them back and see those lasting friendships that the tournament has built. And finally, I'm off to National Stadium tomorrow for the final leg of our World Cup qualifier. So wishing the Gombe Warriors all the best of luck as they continue to march on towards the World Cup, not looking at all likely with Curacao. But I think, they've made us proud. They've given us something to stand behind. And I think the atmosphere is great. So just encouraging anyone listening. I believe there are probably still tickets. I don't know what the weather forecast looks like, but probably bring a rain jacket, but I will see you there. Thank you very much.
Senator Cunningham. I call on Senator Dion Smith. You've indicated you want to speak. You have
Yes,
the floor.
thank you. Madam President, I would like to give condolences to the family of the late Eugene Philip Felden Bassett. He was in charge of ITO services, or the Department of ICT. The family of the late Jermaine Darrell, to the family of the late Joanne McCall, to the family of Amanda Cynthia Jennings, the family of the late Sherlyn N. White, who was a deputy principal at the Sandy Secondary School, to the family of the late Jarius McDonald Landy of Sun Valley, that was one of our neighbors in Warwick. Also to the family of Cleveland Patrick Wade, the Clevey and Leola Wade family, the Jones family, and condolences to the family of the late Carlos Albert Nathan Tavares, a Bermudian top bodybuilder, a true champion. Also, I would like to extend congratulations to the Somerset Cricket Club, to the president, Richard Scott, vice president, Trenton Fabler, the officers and members for their recent cup match prize presentation held on September the 19th. I was especially proud to hear Captain Taryn Frey speak about success being built on collective pride, responsibility. He noted that he would rather lead a team where every individual takes ownership and works together than rely on a single exceptional player who cannot contribute to the unity of the team. I found his words inspiring because they speak to values that are essential not only in the sport, but also in our wider community. Values such as pride, unity, responsibility, values I believe we need to hold on to and strengthen here in Bermuda. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dion Smith. Would any other senator? Quite a few. Senator John White, first and foremost.
Okay, Madam President, tomorrow is the start of the Butterfield Bermuda Championship, which is a PGA golf tour event, which is hosted beautifully by Bermuda every year. And we have 3 locals, 3 Bermudians participating in the event. So I want to give best wishes to Oliver Betchart and Kenny Lejeune and Will Hadrell, who are all participating in the event. So I know that the event is well supported by Bermudians. I think the weather forecast is fortunately better the next few days than it was yesterday. So look forward to a great support for our young Bermudians participating in this professional golf event. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. I will call on Senator Misha Fabler at this time, and then Senator Tannock. And then you.
Thank you, Madam President, for slotting me in. It's full slate this morning. Been a while since we've been here. I had the break. And so I'd like to open by first congratulating the folks at the Corporation of Hamilton and all of the vendors that participated in their Taste of Bermuda Festival. I went down on Sunday, October the 12th with my family. I had a great time. Tried bunch of food. The performances were good as well. And so I wanted to make sure I highlighted that. I really like to also highlight that they had free activities for the youth. Always a great way to ensure you get some folks down with their families when the rides and activities and rock climbing wall. And yes, NPST won. Congratulations to that. I'd also like to offer congratulations. I think a colleague of mine in another place already called it out on Friday, but I would be remiss in not congratulating Mr. Carlton Pepe Dill and his wife Valerie on celebrating their 60th anniversary recently. Ms. Dill is a long-serving member of the Constituency 30 branch. She was the branch chair for many years, and so I am indebted to her for her services. And so I just wanted to make sure I highlighted that. I'd also like to congratulate the Department of Culture for hosting another successful Gumbe Festival. That was towards the end of the last month as well, on the 19th of October. I understand it was well attended, and it helps to highlight a cornerstone of our Bermudian culture. Following on, I'd also like to congratulate them for hosting a successful event commemorating the 176th. Sorry, you'll have to correct me on the actual year, but well over 100 years of the Portuguese community arriving in Bermuda. And it was a pleasure to present them with the commemoration of that day. And moving on, I'd like to associate myself somewhat with my colleague, Senator Cunningham's remarks around the men's senior national squad. Although I will not deign to prejudge their performance on the evening, I wish them all the best in their competition. And I'd like to especially highlight the 4 new members of the team that will be coming up to play, which include Brighton Morrison, Donovan Thompson, Joshe Donowa, and Logan Jimenez. And rounding up my congratulations, I'd like to congratulate the folks at Treehouse. They celebrated their 1 year operation very recently, and it is something that I encourage the public to check out. I know one of the co-founders is keen to make the activity of yoga more inclusive. And to that end, I've participated in the events when they do the kind of dad and me to bring your kid along for some yoga, and the kids seem to enjoy quite a bit. And if you are unfamiliar with where it is, it's in town just off Church Street over near Bermuda. And moving on to more somber note, I'd like to provide obituary to Miss Ingrid Pitt and send my condolences to the Pitt family. She's a member of the Riviera State community, and she passed recently, so I wanted to make sure that that was captured. And finally, I'd like to associate myself with my colleague across the aisle, Senator Smith D's comments highlighting Mr. Bassett's long service to the now Department of Information and Digital Technologies. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Misha Fabler. And I can now call on Senator Joanna Tannock. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to associate myself with the comments made by Senator Lindsay Simmons. It was really heartening, and I was very proud to see one of our young women represent themselves so well in Parliament. And so congratulations to both her and her mother. And I hope that she can be an example to other young women on Island. Secondly, I would like to wish a happy 90th birthday to Miss Eunice Tucker, my nursery school, Miss Eunice Tucker Collington, sorry, my nursery school teacher. I said the first place I ever graduated from, I remember donning a white cap and gown complete with tassel at 3 years old, and graduating in her yard in Warwick. So happy 90th birthday to Miss Eunice Tucker Carrington. And then I would like to say a thank you to all of the men and women who have served in memory of Remembrance Day, November 11th. And if you just bear with me, I would just like to say a couple of words. When Winston Churchill visited Bermuda, he said to our House of Assembly in 1942, "You have cause to be proud that it has fallen to your lot to make this important contribution to a better world." Over 3,000 Bermudians served in the First and Second World Wars, with approximately 600 volunteering overseas service. During World War II alone, 544 Bermudians served, including 29 women. A great contribution considering Bermuda's small population. Bermuda suffered 90 deaths in the First World War and 35 deaths in the Second World War. And as I was doing some research on this yesterday, and I haven't been able to get to the bottom of it, so if any members of the public have any information, I would please reach out to me. I also saw that there was one Bermudian man, Henry Darling, who lost his life in the Korean War. And I'm really intrigued and interested to know more about his service and how he ended up in the Korean War. But this is a thank you, a hearty thank you, a heartfelt thank you to all of the men and women who have served overseas and who serve locally, and also who serve in our regiment, who go out during storms, during hurricanes, who assist us during COVID. So this is a thank you to all those who have died, and a thank you to all those who continue to serve in commemoration of Remembrance Day.
Thank you, Senator Tannock. And I call on now Minister Crystal Caesar. You indicated you'd like to speak. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I have a few. I wanted to celebrate the open houses that I've attended for the signature schools that we have. And if we recall, there are now 3 senior signature schools on island, that being Cedar Bridge Academy, the Barclay Institute, and Sands Secondary School. Each welcome students from the middle years to attend those schools as it pertains to the different senior signatures that they have. Sands Secondary, that being hospitality and education services, the Barclay financial services and the health sciences, and Cedar Bridge Academy, oh gosh, it escapes me, but the vocational areas of study, in addition to the creative arts strand, which they will be standing up very shortly. With that said, I congratulate our fellow senator, who is the chair of the board at the Cedar Bridge Academy, for the opening of the Creation Station at the Cedar Bridge Academy this past, gosh, I don't know where we are now. Monday. I'm sure my week is all over the place right now. In terms of the work that they're doing for students who are interested in those vocational creative arts, inspiring young minds. All schools did a very commendable job in highlighting what they will be offering young people in terms of the types of signatures that they're interested in. So I don't envy any of them in trying to choose a school, but I do believe that the schools have done a wonderful job in embracing the different signatures and welcoming students. I tried my best to stay a fly on the wall. I'm not sure how that was possible, but nonetheless, I wanted to see how the students were interacting. And I must say that the schools and their leadership teams have done a remarkable job in opening up their doors to young people and potentials for their futures. I would like to congratulate the Parliamentary Prayer Breakfast Committee for putting on another inspiring and very blessed occasion this past Friday in terms of opening up the parliamentary year for all of the politicians, members of the legislature. It again was, like I said, very inspiring event, and I congratulate them. I also would like to acknowledge the speaker, Mr. Gil Tucker, for his inspiring words as it pertained to education, which I thought was very timely. Yes, I want to congratulate the PLP for their 62nd Legacy Gala, which took place this past Saturday as well, with the theme of including young people and ensuring that we did so or have done so over the last 62 years and encouraging that into the future. On a more somber note, I want to just acknowledge the people, our fellow compatriots in Jamaica who suffered severe losses as a result of Hurricane Melissa. I want to just recognize them and let them know that, and I believe I can associate the entire Senate in that we are keeping them in our prayers. I commend those helping agencies and Bermuda Air for the efforts that they are continuing in providing supplies. I would like to mention that there is a volunteer effort today, and they are looking for volunteers to come and help sort. And so I'm asking the public and any senators who can give time to assist up at the Seventh-day Adventist Church for another flight that will be going down to assist with sorting the items and supporting our compatriots in Jamaica. And again, thank you. I say congratulations to our national team for their efforts. Whilst we probably will not be participants going forward, I have enjoyed the camaraderie in attending all of the games that have happened locally. I'm not sure I'll make it on Thursday, but nonetheless, to date, it has been inspiring, and better luck next time. Nonetheless, we want to encourage them with their efforts and acknowledge that it's still a feat to even have been included. So congratulations to them on their efforts, and let's try and get one win at least tomorrow night. But nonetheless, I say congratulations to them and best of luck. And that's it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Minister. Would any other senator care to speak? Yes, I see the hand of Mr. Senator Tarek Dunbar Smith. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon to my Senate colleagues and the listening audience. But I just have a few congratulatories and two bits. I'll just like to say again, congratulations to our men's Gombe Warriors, and also a special shout out to Logan Jimenez. Logan, I've watched Logan since a young boy. He's an exceptional footballer. He plays for Hibs over in Scotland. He and his mother left Bermuda about 5 years ago to venture on this journey and being a parent of a young man who's also on the same journey. I know that it has been a long, tedious journey, but I am happy that he has been included finally in our national team to play for our beloved island tomorrow. I know his mother, Lindsay, and his father, Jay, are very, very proud of him. I wanted to send that shout out to him. Also, I had the privilege of speaking at the Vasco da Gama 90th anniversary gala a few weeks ago. It was an honor as my first official Senate speech as a senator to honor the contributions that Vasco da Gama has made to not just the Portuguese community, but the entire Bermuda community. So I was very honored to do that. And a somber note, I sent out two obits to the family of Miss Amanda Jennings. Her son, Jabiko Jennings, is part of the North Village coaching staff, which I am a part of. And he is a wonderful young man. His grandson is a very good friend. I'm sorry, his son, her grandson, Ziani, is a very good friend of my son, Romans. So I do send my deepest condolences to the entire Jennings family. Also, a bit to my neighbor, Jarius Landy of Sun Valley. That's also Senator Smith in front of me did say earlier. His son, Michael J. Landy, is one of my very best friends. I was in his wedding. He was in my wedding. And to Mrs. Landy, his sister Natalie, and him, I do wish my deepest condolences to them. That's all for me for this. Thank you very much, Senators and listening audience.
Thank you, Senator Tariq Dunbar Smith. Would any other senator care to speak on congratulations or obituaries? Hearing none, then we will. Oh, sorry. Madam AG, Minister of Justice.
That is just fine. Madam President,
You have the floor.
I thought it was appropriate, Madam President. I'll be doing a short recap, but I certainly wanted to join some of the comments that have been made in this chamber this morning, and starting with the amazing collage. Simons, I heard her address to the House of Commons, and I was completely floored. I know that she's quite a talent, but I can't tell you the amount of pride I had listening to her. And so, yes, we just looking at the bright future that is ahead of her. And I just wanted to join colleagues in acknowledging and congratulating her and her parents. On the condolences, I did want to join the condolences to the Fahey family, which are mentioned here, the family and friends of Jermaine Smith, of which Senator Dion Smith and I share a close bond with Jermaine. And I think that his passing highlighted the existence of an incredible program for me that I was not aware of, called the Eden Project, run out of the Anglican Church, where that project gives chances to young men who are either recently released from incarceration or on the road to recovery following drug rehabilitation programming, and helps to provide work, housing, and opportunities for young men in that paradigm, Madam President. And so with that, I just want to congratulate the founders of that project, Terry and Jeff Ellison, for the fine work that is being continued through the Anglican Church. And this is love in action, and there's nothing more Christian than seeing that play out, Madam President. I also wanted to connect with the condolences to the family of Clevie and Leola Wade and the Jones family, who are family friends of mine, on the loss of their son. So hearts go out to them as well. And congratulations now to the Department of Culture, again, joining the Gumbe Festival, a fantastic event. And another hats off to the Department of Culture for the Halloween culture series, the storytelling that took place at the National Museum in Dockyard for Halloween. These stories were just incredible. They were stories that related to Western properties, ghost stories, haunted tales. They actually had me on the edge of my seat. And I have to say, well done on that initiative. It was truly superb, Madam President. And finally, I want to say congratulations to the Bermuda Pacers Track Club, who held their annual prize giving last Sunday at the Police Recreation Club. That is a club that affords opportunities for our young people to travel and to compete at the highest level with sport. It's a club that requires discipline and dedication. And I love that the awards recognize not just winning, but also consistency and improvement. And we know, Madam President, that sport is the antidote to antisocial behavior. And we've heard it in this room already talking about the national team that will be competing in football, but to see our young athletes in track and field, and we know that those are opportunities and bridges to scholarships, to university, and to different lives. So I congratulate Pacers and the parents who are behind their kids, getting them to these meets and to training week in, week out for a whole season. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Madam AG and Minister of Justice. I would just like to also associate myself, first of all, with the condolences extended to the Fay family on the passing of the mother. And from the congratulations side, I would just like to also associate myself with the congratulations to Mr. Carlton Pepe Dill and his wife Valerie on their 60 years of marriage. Also to the student Kalar Simons, who gave an outstanding address in London. And also for the Gombe Festival, I had the privilege of attending. And that's it for congratulations. So with that said, we will now move on to the maiden speeches by our two new senators. The first one being Mr. Dion Smith. Oh, sorry. Beg your pardon. I'm jumping the gun here. Madam AG and Minister of Justice, we have to hand over to you for a return.
Thank you, Madam President. And I move that the House adjourn until November 26th.
November the 26th. And with that said, I move that we, since I have been advised, Ren, that the maiden speeches will be done at this time. And so I will call on Senator Dion Smith to begin. You have the floor.
Thank you. Madam President, honorable members of the Senate, it is both a profound honor and solemn responsibility to rise and speak in this chamber for the first time. I do so with humility, with gratitude, and with deep sense of duty to the people of Bermuda, the very people whose hopes, frustrations, and daily realities we are all here to represent. I am, at my core, a doer. I believe in action, and sometimes I must confess that this brings me into frustration with systems that move too slowly, with structures that resist change, and with attitudes that confuse process for progress. I get frustrated when I see capable men and women, good public officers constrained by rigidities and weighed down by old habits. I get frustrated when our institutions recoil from bold decisions and retreat into routine. Too often, we hide behind what has been done before, even when we know it has not worked. But, Madam President, we are all human, all subject to frailty, to failure, and to fear. And yet, as leaders, we cannot allow our fears to dictate our future. If we are to serve our people, we must be decisive, courageous, and unafraid to think differently, because true service is not about self-preservation, it's about public transformation. Madam President, too many of us have forgotten a simple truth. We earn nothing in this life. We cannot take power, wealth, or possessions with us. We are merely temporary stewards, caretakers of the possessions we hold, the opportunities we are given, and the blessings we enjoy. So let us act according. Let us lead with humility, compassion, and justice, knowing that no one is inherently better than anyone else. At some point in life, we can no longer blame our past for how we choose to live today. After a certain age, life becomes a reflection, not of where you come from, but of what you decide to become. Healing is your responsibility. Growth must be your decision. If you want a better Bermuda, we must each begin by taking responsibility for the part we play in shaping it. Madam President, the cries of the public are not faint. They are loud, persistent, and often painful. I have listened to frustrations of ordinary Bermudians, those who feel unseen, unheard. I have also listened to the frustrations of public service servants, those working tirelessly within a system that often seems unwilling to reward initiative or embrace innovation. At the same time, I cannot ignore the economic imbalance that persists within our borders. In a country this small, it is alarming that so much economic power is held by so few. A handful of entities control vast segments of market, from shipping, milk distribution, from road paving to tourism, from grocery stores to importation of basic goods. We speak of fairness, yet we continue to accept an imbalance that stifles opportunity and locks too many Bermudians out of true ownership. If only we had more visionaries among us, leaders motivated not by personal gain, but by national purpose. If we only had more decision makers, we truly understand what is happening in our communities, our schools, and in our hearts of our people. Madam President, Bermuda, in all her beauty, has become a nation defined too often by self interest, complacency, and greed. Yet I refuse to believe that this is who we are destined to be. We could have been and still can be something far greater. A country that puts its people first, a country that embraces free markets, yes, but ensures that its citizens have a real stake in ownership and the success of its economy. Imagine a Bermuda where majority of our national assets, our businesses, our industries, our innovations are owned by Bermudians themselves. Such a nation would not just be wealthy, it would be proud. Its workers would give 120% each day because their labor would build their community, their country, their future, and their legacy. Without vision, Madam President, we perish. I fear that our lack of vision, our absence of long term, courageous, people centered planning is costing us dearly. It is remarkable that this small island, once debt free, now carries billions in national debt. I must ask, how did we arrive here? Who allowed it to happen? And most importantly, how do we fix it? Our country is suffering not only economically, but spiritually and socially. Too many are hurting in silence. Too many feel abandoned. We are not the Bermuda we used to be. We have lost the sense of community that once defined us. There was a time when we shared what we had, when we looked out for one another, when every child belonged to the whole neighborhood. Where are the grandmothers, the grandfathers, the whole families together, or that whole families together? Where are the uncles and aunts who correct us with love and raise us with discipline? They are gone, and with them much of the moral compass. Madam President, we must also speak the truth about accountability, especially among ourselves. How long will we continue to blame others for our stagnation? How long will we invoke the memory of the white man as the source of our woes? Yes, history has wounded us deeply. Slavery, segregation, systematic discrimination have shaped the trajectory of Black Bermudians in painful ways. But history is not a crutch for the future, it is a teacher. We cannot heal by looking backwards. We must rise by moving forward together. Education must be the center point that rise. But, Madam President, I ask, what are we truly teaching our children? Are we giving them discipline or just diplomas? Are we preparing them for complete or to complete globally or simply to pass locally? We have made it increasingly difficult for educators to do their jobs. Teachers are unable to discipline effectively. They are held hostage by regulations that remove authority but demand results. How can a teacher inspire learning when home provides no reinforcement and when respect for authority has all but vanished? We cannot complain about antisocial behavior, about fights and killings, when we have failed to raise our children with values. We cannot resent the progress of others who come to our shores, expats who have arrived as blue collar workers, but come equipped with discipline, education, and drive when we ourselves have abandoned the same virtues. Madam President, we must face an uncomfortable truth. Too many Bermudians have become uncomfortable with mediocrity. Too many of us would rather complain than commit. Too many would rather reject hard work because the money is not enough, yet fail to see the effort and consistency are the seeds of the better opportunity. We cannot keep blaming the system when we refuse to rise above it. And we cannot rise or raise our children to believe that talent alone will save them. Talent without discipline leads nowhere. Talent without humility breeds entitlement. We see this even in sports. Our young athletes excel locally, but too few reach the world stage. Why? Because greatness demands sacrifice, it demands respect, it demands perseverance. Madam President, honorable members, our morals and values are fading. They have become foreign words in our vocabulary. We speak often of progress, but I ask, progress towards what? It seems that the more things change, the more they stay the same. We have modernized our systems but lost our soul. Yet, despite it all, I remain hopeful. I believe in the resilience of Bermudians and the spirit. I believe that we can rise again, but only if we choose unity over ego, responsibility, and over excuses and action of rhetoric. Let us return to being our brother's keeper. Let us rebuild a Bermuda where values are lived, not just spoken. Let us raise a generation of Bermudians who know their worth and their duty. Madam President, if we do nothing, we will continue to drift. But if we stand together, we dare to lead the vision, discipline, and compassion, we can yet become a small nation with the biggest heart, the tiniest island, with the greatest example to the world. Bermuda's future will not be written by those who wait. It will be written by those who work. So let us get to work and work together. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Dion Smith. We will now hear from Senator Tariq Dunbar Smith on his maiden speech. You have the floor.
Good day, Madam President and
Good
fellow
day to you.
Senate colleagues and the listening audience. Today, I stand here before you, Madam President, my fellow Senate colleagues, opposition, government, independent, and before our island, a humbled, honored citizen. To Opposition Leader Robert King, thank you for your trust to appoint me to represent our party, the One Bermuda Alliance, as an opposition senator. Madam President, this role is one that holds tremendous responsibility. Responding to this request, I answered a call to serve our island in the upper house. Madam President, I say that, along with many Bermudians, I feel a sense of unease and a worrying feeling of what's next. Our shores have changed. Things that we used to frown upon have become normalized. Our unfortunate reality is many Bermudians hardly bat an eye when we see bloodshed. How has it become normalized, Madam President? How have we as a people become desensitized to the genocide in our streets? Madam President, I don't claim to have the magic formula to fix the mess we have with major crimes. I have ideas. And maybe now all of us who have a bit more influence, if we agree, us who wear red ties or green ties, can come together with a wider community so that we can find solutions. I won't give up on our youth, Madam President. They are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way, the famous song says. It starts in the home, but parents are working 2 jobs, many folks say. Well, Madam President, that's nothing new. Most of our forefathers worked 2 jobs, but the village chipped in to help. Where is our village, Madam President? surely we can find our village again. Houses were built, mortgages and bills were paid from people working 2 and sometimes 3 jobs. But the support of the village was there. We looked out for one another. We knew right from wrong. As much as I wanted to stop on the streets of Ordred as a student at the Berkeley Institute after school, even the slightest pause on the street, I was told to beat it over the hill by the man on the street. Yes, Madam President, the man on the street looked out for me and sent me home. I was so blessed as a young boy with Mrs. Rayner, who would pick me up from the Gilbert Institute when my mother was at work, Mrs. Dickinson, who would look out to make sure all my homework was done, Granny Todd and Tuffy Todd would call out to make sure I was safe when home alone. To Dyrone, Aunt Jenny, Trevor, and Trevanda. That was my Tea Room Hill village. I can say that many neighborhoods still have this, Madam President, but we need our entire island to become a village again and have our countrymen's back, looking out for our neighbors and our friends again. Allowing someone to come by and maybe borrow some sugar from now and then. No, the blame isn't solely with the government when it comes to our crimes. I do believe that we have the best interest and intent for our island. We all want to help to make a difference, just we take different roads to get to the destination. There's more than one way to get to St. George's, Madam President. Will we always agree? History inside these chambers has proven that it's not possible, but we can discuss and disagree with respect. Respect is what it all boils down to, Madam President. A great man, Stanfield Smith, taught me at the Berkeley Institute that respect is earned, and to get respect, you must give respect to others. I have a ton of respect and admiration for you, Madam President, and my fellow Senate colleagues on both sides of the floor. Although we won't agree on all matters, I will agree respectfully and honestly. I have been asked over the past few years by many, Madam President, why would you get involved in the political world, Tariq? You must be out of your mind. I tell them I am here to make an impact, no matter the circumstances, impact to help others and ensure them that all hope isn't lost. Impact to show our youth and everyday citizens that they too are valued, Madam President. When appointed to these chambers, I reflected on some examples I witnessed as a young primary school student by my uncle, the late Kenneth Richardson. He was an example on how to operate with calmness, poise, dignity, and humility when making decisions that affect our beautiful island. I learned, Madam President, important decisions shouldn't be made with haste, arrogance, or lack of judgment. One should always have an understanding of the long-term effect of how the decisions affect our island. Madam President, I was told I can have 15 minutes to speak. I assure you and my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, I won't be that long. Points are often made in few words. Thank yous are oftentimes meant for private moments. They can be appreciated with a simple thank you. But today I want to thank my mother, Julie, my stepfather, Tracy Bean, my father, Colin Smith, and my stepmother, Michelle Smith. Without you four being what you were in my life, I don't know where I would end up at times. The experiences that you have given me and the examples that you have set me on this pathway to success in life. Although I am just a picture that is beginning to be painted, I thank you for remaining steadfast and the best examples for me even today as a 45-year-old man. Madam President, I carry a heavy heart as well today, as my political career was heavily influenced by my grandmother, the late Betty Smith. Those that knew my grandmother knew she was very steadfast of where she stood politically, and if you didn't know, she would let you know. She was one that taught me that politics shouldn't be about race, but about Bermudians, as Bermudians are made up of many different races and different demographics. One should strive to represent all our island first and foremost and nothing else. Madam President, race is a real thing. I will not deny that. But Betty Smith, along with my parents, taught me that despite race, you go forth. We don't use it as a crutch when things get rough or an excuse for when things don't happen or go the way that we want it to be. It should be a motivation as to why I will be successful, because I earned it. Nothing was given. That's the pride of the Bermuda I grew up in. We made it happen, and we were immensely proud when we did. Madam President, let me thank also the constituents of Constituency 24, Warwick Southeast, who trusted me with their votes and their continued support. Still much work is to be done in our community, but know that I will walk tall and continue my commitment to our community. Madam President, I cannot leave out two of my very closest friends, who I call my day and night and any circumstance friends, Renee and Tanae. You two ladies have been through everything with me and stuck with me and been by my side, passing no judgment, just support. Even if you felt that I should go another path, you still stayed loyal and true. To my grandparents who have passed, Betty and Malcolm Smith, Julia and Hilton Tucker, my life wouldn't be as easy as it is without you paving the way so that I could have a piece of the rock, building a foundation so that I can pass it on to the next generation. I won't take any of what you've laid down for me for granted. Thank you. Lastly, Madam President, to my beloved Susan, and my son Roman, you two are the reason I am here today. I strive to be a better man and a human for you. It's not an easy road, finding balance of family and serving our island. You have been there for me, understanding that greatest sacrifice is that of the family when you choose to serve. Roman, my son, press on with those endless opportunities in the UK. I will be there to support you and help you achieve all your dreams. I love you both very much. Madam President, thank you for obliging me this time. Thank you to my Senate colleagues and the listening audience for your ear.
And thank you, Senator Tariq Dunbar Smith, for your maiden speech. And before I move on, I'd just like to acknowledge the presence of Opposition MP Scott Pearman, who's in the gallery. Welcome to you, sir. Would any other senator care to speak on the motion to adjourn? Hearing none. Senators, the Senate stands adjourned until the 26th of November. Senate stands adjourned. Thank you.